This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of IronMen. My name is Tom. I'm the facilitator of the group this week, and we are diving into Jamil Frazier's book, The 12 Shift, by exploring shift number 10, which is Find Your 12. It's a really exciting chapter, and it's already paid a lot of dividends in my life. I thought we would go ahead around and introduce ourselves. So it's the Iron Three tonight. I don't know if you know guys hockey, but if they play a 5-on-3, they used to call them the three defensemen, the Iron Three, in a 5-on-3 on hockey. So we got the Iron Three tonight here. And real quick, guys, let's just introduce yourself and talk about the summer. What do we have planned for the summer? Any big plans coming up? My name is Tom, and this summer I will be performing a show that I wrote about my pirate character, Sharktooth Sam, and we are performing at the Orlando Fringe Festival. We've got 7 shows running in May, and so we'll be rehearsing up to that point and then doing the show. So that's what my summer's looking like. John.
Well, my name's John Irway, and this summer, having lost 125 pounds so far since last, and hopefully another 50 or so at least by August, I signed up for a 20-mile one-day hike through a local state park. So I used to love hiking, and I haven't in a long time, so I'm super excited and also super nervous because that'll be a stretch. So
yeah,
that'll be my summer.
Make sure you stretch before the stretch. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Alan.
So, hey, I'm Alan Rieger, and my wife and I have been discussing taking a road trip to visit some family members and also incorporating the work that we do into the journey. We each have our own version of coaching people into healthier, happier lifestyles, and they overlap very nicely and can work together to help people have options to improve their physical, emotional, weight, health, all kinds of different ways. And the idea that we can travel and get paid to offset some of the costs while we're doing it seems like a pretty darn good idea to me. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen here, and go to shift number 10, find your 12. Just a few things about IronMen. We, just like the program of Optavia has 4 tent poles or table legs or whatever we're calling them these days, we have the 4 parts of IronMen, which is story, study, support, and share. We limit crosstalk, remain muted except when sharing, avoid divisive issues, and share from experience. We're here to sharpen, not fix each other. The group is group-led, discussion-based, interactive, welcoming, honest, and positive. And it is not these things: a teaching, a soapbox, a substitute for reading the text, or a negative space, or a sales tool for Optavia. If you are watching this, encourage you to check out the book from Jamil Frazier. It's available on audio or good old-fashioned print. I have one right here, and it's a great read. So I encourage you to check it out. He did not pay me to say that. All right, so let me get my notes up here. So many things going on. Okay. So story. I don't know that we've all shared our stories during the course of this program. But let me share a success story from a client. We are fortunate enough to be able to be coaching a family member, and she's had a hard upbringing, and we just recently reconnected, and she has always struggled with her health, and she's decided to make some changes. So we came alongside her and we talked her through the program and explained it to her, and she has just taken to it. She has been working all four legs of the table, as it were. And as our mentor, Nancy Strauss, says, our clients who do all four parts of the program win. The results are predictable, and they're predictable with her. And she's lost about 25 pounds. She's getting out and doing things which she's never been able to get up off the out of the house before. She's just the 25 pounds made a huge difference. Alan and I were talking earlier about the 5 pounds of fat. 5 pounds doesn't sound like too much. Take a look and see what 5 pounds is. That's a lot. So 5 of those is a huge difference for her. And just another kind of feather in the cap for this amazing program that we all have worked with. So if you're watching this and you are not part of the Optavia program, I encourage you to get with the coach or whoever invited you to the change wall and take charge of your life, become the dominant force in your life, as we like to say. All right, so moving into study. Shift 12 is all about having an abundance mentality. You'll hear that mentioned a lot in Optavia circles, an abundant mindset, as opposed to a scarcity mindset. And he spends a lot of time in this chapter just giving examples of scarcity mindsets versus abundant mindsets. He talks about the woman who wanted to open a daycare. And he said, that's great, but have you considered opening 30 or 40 daycares? And he says he's had this discussion many times with people, and whenever he has it, their jaw just kind of drops to the floor because they've never dared to think that big. Because opening a daycare is good, and you will help some people. Opening 40 daycares is great, and you're going to help hundreds of people. And that is a mental shift that you have to make. And finding your 12 starts in the mind and is created in the world. And I'm wondering if anybody on tonight has an example that may come to the top of their heads about where you shifted on this. And I'll go first to give you time to think. So I started writing this show called Queen of Swords. It's a musical, rock musical, and it's when I first got the idea in 2015. I came across this historical person, and I thought it'd be a good story to tell, and I started writing it. At that time, I was writing it to do in a fringe festival, so it would be an hour long, it'd be 6 people, and it was a scarcity mindset. I was going to write this one little show, we were going to do it one weekend, and that was it. It was going to be done. And I couldn't make that happen. I just couldn't find the way to do that in that amount of time. So then I saw the route that other musicals have taken to Broadway. There's a musical called Hadestown, which basically started as a 6-song folk record. And then it went to, somebody came alongside and they started performing it in a hollowed out bus in Vermont. And then 10 years later, they win the Tony Award. And I had this shift, and I was like, well, if they can do that with their show, why can't I do that with my show? So now our goal is not to do it one time in Orlando, but to bring in a whole bunches of people and to take the show to Broadway. However that works, whatever that means. And then, perform it hundreds of times, and then have other groups perform it, and have this show and the message of the show go around the world. And that's our abundant mindset when it comes to Queen of Swords. Do you guys have anything that comes to mind? Have you experienced this shift in your lives? Nothing coming to mind?
All right, yeah, I can jump in.
Okay, please.
Sorry, Alan, were you? Okay, sorry.
We can all go. There's time. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. It went off the screen for a second. Gotcha.
It's okay. So a couple of years ago, I've played music my entire life, various instruments. And a couple of years ago, a coworker of mine said, "Hey, I'm going to get together with friends tonight to play some Irish music." And I was like, "Well, that sounds like fun. Can I come along?" And long story short, it's turned into a regular thing where we get together, and now we actually have a standing monthly gig at a local brewery, and we're getting more and more people asking us to come and do like private events and festivals and things like that. And um, I'm still in the scarcity mindset of, we're just a couple of hacks that enjoy playing music and fiddle around. But I'm starting to shift because there's enough evidence of people saying, hey, we want to give you money to come do this. And they wouldn't do that unless they really wanted it. So it's been an interesting foundational change for me, and I'm still very much in the midst of it. And I have to admit, Tom, when I heard you saying what you just were about Queen of Swords, that's exciting. Like I hope I can start to dream like that on something someday. I'm really encouraged by your boldness to have that dream. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it took a long time to have the courage to say that out loud, because that invites failure, right? So you put it out there, and now if it doesn't make it to Broadway, then people are like, you said, right? So yeah, it's risky, but we'll learn later in the chapter where it says, I think it ends on, you're going to an abundance mindset is let me look it up, because I don't want to quote it wrong.
Is it the bit about the accountant?
No, to make this shift means to do more, or I like to achieve more by doing less. So for example, right now with Queen of Swords, there's a rehearsal going on. I'm not doing it. I have other people who have come alongside who are better than me at doing what they need to do, and they're out there doing it. And it's just going and running on its own. And I'm accomplishing more, but I'm doing less. And that's kind of the whole point of it, is that, it's not us. He talks about this too, about, is this at odds with doing your own push-ups? And it absolutely isn't, because you have to do your work. You have to do the work. But at one point in time, when you get to the shift of you're going to do more, you're going to change the world, then you have lots of people. Your superpower is reproducing yourself and other people, and reproducing your and nurturing their superpower. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but yeah, it's exciting. Alan, you had something?
Yeah. In my world, I live very close to that poverty mindset, or the lack of abundance, scarcity thing, because the idea that there's what you can personally generate is only as big as what you can personally generate. And when you run out of hours, when you run out of time, and you've done everything that you can do, and you're exhausted at the end of the day, there's a satisfaction in having given your all. But as much as I spend pretty much 5 days a week being connected to other coaches and hearing about the way that the business side of this can be structured, and why we want to have a team, this chapter struck it differently with me. If I have a certain amount of time that I'm putting into the business, and I have a certain amount of time that I've been putting into my other income producing things to cover what needs to be covered and where I've been spending my time, I can be far more impactful to the universe by teaching other people to do what I'm doing and bringing them with me, even if each of them doesn't do as much for my bank account as what I did, because they'll stack.
Right.
Years ago, I kind of got my hand slapped in a course on financial management, where we were looking at how debt impacts people. And I said, the lesson from that was, if debt equals slavery, then I need to get myself some more slaves. Ooh, that was really bad. That was, but the idea of having people, let me explain. In the real estate business, there are people who sell houses, and there are people who sell monthly subscription services to real estate agents. One of those two groups lives and breathes on what they do every single day to go get commission. The other group just sits there and collects a payment every month from a wide number of people that they're servicing. Rather than getting other people to pay me, which was the poverty mindset of 10 years ago, the abundance mindset that's coming up in my thoughts today is, let me find some more people to help. And by helping them, I bridge that gap between what I can do in a day and where the other income source can come in without taking time away from this until I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing that comes from today that's going to carry me.
Excellent. All right. So next he says, or the section is thinking bigger and becoming more. And he talks about Harry Box Brown. So for those who haven't read the text, if I say to you the name Harry Box Brown, most of you are not going to know that name. But he was a slave during the Civil War, and he actually came up with an ingenious plan of putting himself in a crate, in a box, and mailing himself to the North. And he succeeded, and he was shipped to the North, and he got out of the crate, and he was free. And that is a great story. But we don't really know about Henry Box Brown. Now, if I say the name Harriet Tubman, pretty much everybody's going to know Harriet Tubman. She's on dollar bills. There's movies. There's all over the place. What's the difference? She escaped slavery. Yeah. But then she went back, and with hundreds of other people, she started the Underground Railroad and got hundreds of people to safety. And what Henry Box Brown did was good, but what Harriet did was great. And she was thinking bigger, and she was becoming more. Abundance, see if this is, abundance forces you to become more, was another quote that jumped out at me. It's an old Covey thing of beginning with the end in mind. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you're starting, but you already know where you're going, and where you're going is abundance, then you're going to change the way you act in the now. So that made an impression on me. And then this one, our true superpower is reproducing our superpower in others. This is something we're doing right now with Tonya, with just, again, speaking to Optavia. We've been for, a year and a half or so looking to get clients, and hey, we can help you with your health journey. And that's good. But what we started doing now is building a team. So we're looking at our friends list and people that we know and people that we'd like to go into business with and saying, hey, I think you would be a really good coach. They may or may not need program, but they can do what we do. We can reproduce what we do in them and build that team and become more by doing less. Any thoughts on that, gentlemen? It's a lot of the same thing, but it's just he goes and really talks about it in slightly different ways, which is good.
I think it's hard for me, being a perfectionist, to think about teaching somebody else to do what I do so they can do it. I don't want to say for me, but it's like I have a hard time letting go and saying, okay, you go do that now. I trust you to go do it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I'm not sure how I'm able to do that, but like, again, I hate to keep talking about Queen of Swords, but it's just forefront in my mind right now. But we hired their director, and she was like, well, how much do you want me to mess with this? And I'm like, no, I want you to do it. I want you to go. I mean, she's not going to change words, but she's going to change the way things are read. She's going to change the way and meanings of the way things are said, which is going to be some very big changes. And it won't be what I have in my head, but I trust her, even though I've never worked with her before. I trust her to take my baby and make it better. And I think that's kind of part of it, right? You gotta trust people. Because if you've done the work of reproducing, the vision, like she and I have had a lot of talks about the vision of the show, the idea of the show. And if I've done a good job of that, then she's going to do a good job of interpreting it. So, but yeah, it's not easy. The next thing he talks about, and these are just kind of more examples of this same point, the carpool philosophy of, if you're driving from point A to point B, and you're by yourself, that's fine. You're going to get stuck in traffic, and you look over to the HOV lane, and there's carpooling and people just going, not stopping. We don't have that in Orlando, so I can't really relate to it. Everybody stops. But yeah, it's another example, and you have to sacrifice some things. Sometimes you have to, you don't get to choose the radio station, or you don't get to set the temperature where you like it to be, or so, but you sacrifice the now for the future. And I thought that was a really good point. Next up, your vibe attracts your tribe. This is a reoccurring theme. We've seen that people around you can accentuate or hinder your growth. What's the quote we saw in the previous shift? That you are the summation of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Yeah. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are the people on your team? Like when we're going out to find our team right now, it's those people. It's those people that we can have great conversations with, that we can, that'll, call us on our stuff and sharpen us. It's people that fan those flames. And as he quoted Rumi, set your life on fire and seek those that fan the flames. If the people are considering for your team do anything but fan the flames when you light your fire, they are not the right people for your team. And those could be very good friends. Have you guys ever had a friend? We talk a little bit about this in toxic relationships, but a friend who does not fan your flames? Have you ever experienced that? Yeah, that can be tough. Moving on. How do you lead your tribe? This is where the hard work comes in, right? Integrity, personal responsibility, competence, good people, and leadership skills are hard for service. And I'd add one more on there: consistency. And that's, I think, where I struggle, is I can do these things most of the times, but then there's times where I blow it. Not perfection, but just where I'd like to be a little bit more consistent. You guys add anything to this list, or see if there's anything else or insights into any of these things? What's the hardest one for you on these, maybe, without selling yourself out and saying integrity? Yeah.
So if we're the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, but those 5 people are the dog, the cat, the goldfish, yourself, there's a difference between having good people skills when you're around people and actually liking to be around people and seeking to be around people. I'm really good at personal responsibility and competence, and most of the time integrity. It's the how much do I want to gather with other people And is that self-defense, or is that just old patterns?
Mhm.
So there's an opportunity. Let me teach you the good skills and skip on the, no, stay here in the room. Don't go off in your own corner. We're going to work together, kind of thing. That me.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have our strengths, and some of these things we may be better in than others. I myself am an introvert. It's hard for me to go be with people sometimes, especially if it's like a setting. We had a retreat a couple of weeks ago at Nancy's, and I was the only guy there, and it was a small retreat, so there was nowhere to hide, and I was really uncomfortable and had a lot of anxiety about going, but I went and we had a good time, and I learned a lot. I took stuff home from that was very helpful. So, what we learned in an earlier shift, I think, was to, pain equals growth, right? To lean into the discomfort. If something hurts, it's probably where you need to go, which is counterintuitive, but if you're stretching that muscle, yeah, it hurts, but stretching it is what's going to make you stronger. So he spends then a lot of time in the next chapters, or the next sections, talking about different examples of people who built their 12, people like Jesus of Nazareth, Tom Sawyer painting the fence, Jay-Z raising up artists to make music instead of just making all the music himself. So it's again, building that team, leaving scarcity forever, and do more
Tom,
by doing less.
quick question for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, and maybe this is just my misunderstanding of the book, but as I was reading through it, and he uses the Tom Sawyer example, I always read that as Tom Sawyer tricking his friends to do his work for him, and Jamil seems to have taken a different approach with it, as he was helping his friends somehow. And I'm just wondering if I'm missing something.
I'm with John. It was taught to my class in school as the deception to get what you want kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although there is a let me show you a different way to look at the world. Even though I tricked you into doing this, you had fun, didn't you? You accomplished something as a group, didn't you? Yeah, but well, is maybe the leadership and the personal skills was great, but the integrity not so good with Tom.
Yeah, that's fine. To be fair, I did not see the movie with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I missed that one. But I'm a little rusty on my Twain. But yeah, I mean, it definitely can get that vibe from it for sure. But I think the point is he turned it into a big opportunity for everyone, not just himself. But he was getting somebody else to do his chores for them. So yeah, maybe that one's not the strongest of examples. I would grant you that. So that's basically it, and that's a big shift, and it can really change your life, because once you get into abundance, you don't want to go back, because it's just a different way of doing things. You've shifted it, so you can't go back. So we've talked a little bit here between the three of us. So any of you watching now, I think what we have decided is to have the next Ironman on May 30th. Most usually we just skip and do first and third, but we've got an extra week in March. So
I think you mean March 30th.
Boy, those dates are completely wrong. Both of those dates are wrong. Okay, so March 30th and April 6th. Ignore what you see on the screen. All right, we're just gonna take that off right now. All right, so yes, March 30th will be our next Ironman, which is 2 weeks from tonight, and then we'll do one more on the 6th of April, which will be our last shift of the book, and then we'll figure out what's going to happen next. Any other thoughts, insights, breakthrough revelations on shift number 12? Oh, no, shift number 10. I was ready to go to the end. Shift number 10, finding your 12. Anybody else got any thoughts?
It's interesting to me, this idea of, abundance, and you listen to any self-help people and they always talk about gratitude being an important component of personal growth. And to me, it seems to kind of tie into this idea here of, that be grateful in all your circumstances for what you have. And here we're talking about, having that sense of abundance in all the circumstances. Maybe you don't have an abundant amount of finances, but you can still act generously, or the abundance of, being able to think you can accomplish crazy things in the midst of, barely being able to get out of bed. It's all that mindset that seems so critical in so many ways.
Yeah. Alan?
The one element that struck me that I don't think we've talked about is the idea of when you have your 12, that sometimes there has to be pruning. I know that that goes back to who are you hanging out with, but in the Jesus example, he talked about Peter and Judas, but
Right.
as you're working with your group, you have your director. If your director suddenly was taking the entire thing in a completely different direction than what you've envisioned and creating a completely different show out of it, there might need to be a conversation about whether this is still the show that you're putting together or whether it's a different show.
Right.
Not that either of them couldn't still be possible or practical, but you've got one vision and they've got a different vision. If the visions are the same, you're driving down the same highway. With the pruning was the example that you get rid of some of the things that aren't going well and you put the energy back into the group and you get that much more out of it. And you see it in flowering plants and vegetables and whatnot. And we definitely see it with people too. The idea of one bad apple spoiling the bunch, if there's a negative attitude in the group and it's bringing people down, it doesn't just bring them down, it brings down a lot of people.
For sure.
To deal with abundance as a mindset and balance that with practical, pragmatic realism, it's tricky some days. And I get that wrestling match.
Yeah.
So
I think with me, I tend to hear abundance, and I spent a lot of time acquainted with the prosperity gospel of, to be a successful Christian means you have a jet and a car and a boat and a mansion, and you're living in this abundance. And of course that never rang true for me. But it goes back to our money story, right? And what's your relationship with money? And so that's where I get a little bit hinky with money, as I remember all of those people who were rich. But when we're talking abundance, to me, that is not solely or even primarily speaking of financial abundance. It's a thought of, what are we doing with our lives? Are we doing this much, or are we doing this much with our lives? Are we helping some people? Or are we helping a lot of people? To tell the story of Queen of Swords, which deals with all kinds of issues from LGBTQ visibility to dealing with depression, that's an important story for me. I want to tell that story around the world. Making money with that story is not my motivation. Telling the story and helping people, that's why I'm doing this. Because honestly, shows don't make money on Broadway anymore. So that's not the track you want to take. But to get back to Alan's thing, you notice it didn't say to make this shift means to do more by doing nothing. right? It means to do more by doing less. And so there's still work to do. You know, Jesus had to prune his 12, right? I mean, he was like, what you got to do, go and do it. Go. You know, Jay-Z has to produce artists and manage them, and if they get out of control or whatever, then he's working out. So there's still work that you're doing, but it's not the same work. It's not the nose to the grindstone, you know, running in the rat race. You're in the back working with a group of people and managing them. So it's work, but it's less. But there's still work to be done. All right. Everybody good? Closing thoughts? No, pretty much hit it. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us here live. And for those of you that are watching, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you're watching on YouTube, you want to leave a comment, that is cool. You can go ahead and put something in the comments. We'd love to hear back from you. So thanks so much for joining us. We will see you on March 30th as we get into shift number 11. Have a good night, everybody.